If you're a triathlete over the age of 60, you probably ask yourself this question: what are the best type of intervals for me to be doing? Sweet spot, threshold, or VO₂ Max? Now, of course, the answer is dependent on what events you're doing, whether it's sprint, standard, 70.3 or Ironman. But as the last video where I teased this was all about training for Ironman, let's focus on that. Of course, you could do all of them and they'll all give you some sort of returns. But the question you need to ask yourself is which one is going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? i.e., what's the best return on my investment? And let's face it, if you're going to work hard on something, you want to know that you're getting the best outcome. So let's look at each of them in turn and then try and make up a mind as to the best strategy. So sweet spot. It's equivalent to tempo pace in running. It's around 88 to 94% of FTP. So some people say it's kind of hard, and I think I've probably been in that boat myself. It's zone 3 or 4, well above what you're going to be racing Ironman at. In terms of heart rate, if you use that to measure intensity, then it's around 75 to 85%. It's just below and just above the first turn point, so where your body starts to produce some reasonable quantities of lactic acid. And in terms of a rating of perceived exertion, it's about 7 out of 10. Now, the thing about sweet spot is it builds endurance very efficiently. There's not a lot of oxidative damage done from the cells here, not much reactive oxygen species, and the corrosiveness that comes from higher intensity. So you recover quickly, and it means you can maybe do more of these sessions each week than you might do at higher intensities. The recovery cost is moderate, but not as long as for those other intensities, and that might be a consideration for older athletes. And it's, as I said earlier, it's highly relevant to your Ironman pace. Now, the next level up, getting a bit warmer, is threshold. This is about 10k pace if you're a runner. So if you are going to do, obviously you're going to do run training and swim training as well, then this is critical swim speed pace or 10k pace in running. On the bike, just either side of your functional threshold power, so 95 to 105. And if you're in that zone, then it doesn't really matter. You can do intervals just below or just above, or you can play around with it within the same session. It's around zone 4. If you're using heart rate, 83 to 90%, and if you're using RPE, then around 7 to 8%, so a little notch up from the sweet spot. In terms of lactate tolerance, it's good at raising your ability to deal with that, and there are some races where it's a bit lumpy and you're going to have to dig a bit deeper into your power banks, and that is likely to raise your lactate. So doing some work here might be a benefit. The problem is there's a high recovery demand for this, and so you might not be able to do as many of these in a week. And again, if you're a younger athlete, you may not worry about that too much, but as older athletes, we need to think about how we're going to recover from sessions and how it's going to fit in with our other workouts as well. It's also of limited use for Ironman. I know you think that if you're working at FTP, it's going to raise your FTP, but you can take two approaches. A rising tide lifts all boats from below, or you can drag everything up from above. Now, the top intervals, apart from very, very short maximal sprints, so that what most endurance athletes are going to be interested in most of the time is VO₂ Max. 106 to 120% of FTP. So if you've got an FTP of 250, you're going to be working somewhere between 280 and 300 watts. That's quite a big shift. It's zone 5, 90 to 95% maximum heart rate, 8 to 9 out of 10 RPE, and it's painful. It does boost your aerobic ceiling, but I would use it sparingly. And the reason for that is because there is a high recovery cost. You're creating a lot of lactic acid. And incidentally, that's why the 30-30 sessions are quite common, because those shorter efforts with the shorter recoveries don't usually produce quite as much lactic acid, but you'll need to test that yourself. But there is a high recovery cost from this, and consequently, you can't do as many of them. And they're probably not that relevant, as I said, for doing an Ironman race. So what does the research say? Well, I did look. There's not a great deal of research, as you might imagine, on even athletes over the age of 50 doing long distance events, never mind over 60. So this could be an N=1 study where you find out yourself what works best for you. But here are some of the things that I do know from the research. VO2 training is really good for sharpness and if you want to get fit quickly, but it's not what you would do in your foundation. And if you're doing shorter events, you might do a little bit more VO2 max work. Threshold work does mean big gains in fitness, but it's costly to recover from. So if you're going to include any threshold work, there might be short blocks of it. Sweet spot is the most time efficient for endurance gains because you can do them regularly over a period of weeks or months, and you do recover, so it's going to have less influence, negative influence on those other training sessions, and it's going to mean you can repeat stuff more frequently. What your long-term gain is in percentage terms, I have no idea. Again, you'll have to work it out for yourself, but for me, knowing that consistency is the most important thing, I would say be cautious, use sweet spots most of the time. And this is what the hierarchy will look like for you. For building a big foundation, for building a big engine, sweet spot work has got to be your main go-to. A little bit of threshold work to tickle the top end, and occasionally some VO2 max work. And in terms of your weekly training, this is what it's going to look like. You could probably include one sweet spot session. Now, in terms of this, most people are thinking sweet spot is cycling because that's where you hear that phrase used most often. But you could do sweet spot running sessions, which would be a tempo pace. So it might be 1 to 2 kilometers at what would be your normal half marathon pace. Bear in mind that longer duration and higher intensity running sessions do have an additional cost for the impact. So you might want to think about where you do this type of work as well. You do one sweet spot session, mostly zone 2 endurance, and every 10 to 14 days, add in either a threshold or a VO2 max, not both. You can alternate between the two. You get into that really top end there, above 90% maximum heart rate, above 100% FTP. And as you'll see in red there, and something you'll hear me talking a lot about, always include the strength and mobility to build the framework that's going to support you in doing all of this high intensity training. So the takeaway from this, if you are going to get anything out of it, the key as an older athlete is to train smarter so that you can recover better, and that will ensure that you stay consistent. And referring back to last week's video, you might remember if you watched it that I showed you the tortoise and the hare approach to training. For older athletes, the tortoise approach is by far the best one to take. Now, if you want to know how to run stronger in the final 10K, please check out the next video that's coming in this series. We're going to look at why most over 60s triathletes struggle on the run. And crucially, we're going to look at how to fix it. And I'm going to be doing a podcast on this with 2 world famous running coaches as well. So we're going to have a lot of information here because I know that over 60s athletes are constantly telling me, my swimming's still good, my biking's still holding up, but my running is just going down the drain and I can't work out why. So we're going to try and examine what that is and what you can do to try and rectify the situation. So if you want to make sure you get on those videos and see them when they come out, please subscribe below for more, not just Ironman training tips, but triathlon training tips and healthy longevity tips for athletes. Subscribe below. And if you've got any suggestions for future videos, please put them in the comments box along with all your other comments. And while you're there, look in the video description. You can download my free PDF with 5 sweet spot interval sessions that you can try when you're on the bike next. Okay, thanks for being here. Appreciate it always. See you on the next video.